People who have actually had sex with a step relative. What was the aftermath? Not me, but my coworker got his nephew a job with our company to help straighten him out and let him live with him. A few months later he starts talking about how he's going to be a granddad cause his 18Y/0 daughter who lives at home is pregnant. We later found out his nephew was banging his daughter on the regular and was the father of his grandbaby. Nephew got fired for failing a drug test not even 6 months into the gig. Pretty sure he ended up getting kicked out of their house too shortly thereafter. Alright, here we go. So, I meet girl. Meet her mom and dad. The girl and I have sex and date for several months. She gets pregnant. I join the Navy to support my new family. I leave for boot camp and she starts sleeping around, so we break up. During this time her mom goes crazy. Her dad leaves her mom. He then starts seeing my mom. They get married. Boom. My ex is now my stepsister and my son is now my nephew. Welcome to West Virginia, y'all. The outcome was dramatic and incredibly tragic. I had a colleague once who drunkenly confessed to sleeping with her stepbrother. Eventually it developed into a serious relationship. Her parents got to know and desperately tried to get them to break up. Colleague ended up dating her stepbro in secret. It's an open secret in the office at this point. Awkward, because the stepdad was also in upper management. Anyway, her parents find out again and try to get them to break up a second time. It all gets rather public and ugly and quite embarrassing for her mom and stepdad who are now senior figures in the industry running their own company. Colleague tells us that she's been given ultimatums from her mum. Doesn't describe what they are. Suddenly, she stops showing up to work and emails her resignation. She tells ours that she's moving to the US to find some peace. Colleague also texts some folk at work to tell them that she's had enough of the drama and moving away. A few weeks pass and there's no news from her until her stepbro/boyfriend starts contacting all her work friends. I wasn't contacted but some of my teammates were. Stepbro is desperately trying to get in touch with her. She's broken up with him via text. He wants to know if anyone's heard from her. He doesn't believe that she now lives in the US and that she'd go without telling him. Everyone writes him off as a guy who couldn't handle the rejection until he goes to the police and files a missing persons case. Police actually made a few inquiries to everyone's surprise. It doesn't happen often because they usually jaff. This is still a developing country after all. In the end the cops write the stepbro off as a lovesick loon and everything settles down. For a while at least. Stepbro has gone crazy, now claiming that he thinks something bad happened to her. Says he's fallen out with his parents over it. No one at work wants to get involved in this family drama, especially since the parents are important people. Things die down again until they don't. Fast forward 2 years and no one's heard from our colleague until the cops come calling. They've arrested her mom's chauffeur on an unrelated charge and he confesses to murdering our colleague. Even leads them to the body. He doesn't however reveal a motive. He must have been stalking her, think the police, until they investigate further. Our colleague never went to the US. Turns out the emails she sent weren't from her either. They were sent after her death. The texts, the emails and the breakup were all from her mom. She covered her tracks after she orchestrated the murder of her own daughter. All because she wouldn't stop dating her stepbrother and was going to marry him. Sorry for the bad grammar. English isn't my first language. I'd forgotten some details. The colleague's mum always had a strange relationship with her daughter. At social events she often claimed to be her sister, though everyone knew it wasn't true. I think Bo dad was also involved in the murder somehow. The whole thing was one giant clusterfuck. My parents used to be step siblings. My mom was 6, dad was 12 when my mom's mom married my dad's dad. My dad lived with his mom primarily though, and they never spent much time together. I think my grandparents were married for 6 to 10 years or something like that before they divorced. When my mom was about 20, dad was 26, and he asked her out. They've been married for like 35 years. The complicated bit is that I have an aunt that was born from the marriage of my maternal grandmother and paternal grandfather. So my parents share a half sibling. But they are no longer step siblings. Edit. Rephrased a sentence for clarity. Also, guys, there are plenty of other southern hillbilly ass states aside from Alabama, unless I'm missing a reference to something. That being said, every generation beneath my great grandparents on both sides has been born and raised in CA. Although funnily enough, my aunt did move to a southern state when she got married. I like to joke that she complicates the family tree, so they kicked her out. At a family event, so is she your aunt on your mom's or your dad's side? Yes. My sister gave our stepbrother a blowjob on one end of our wraparound couch, with our grown mother asleep on the other end. Spoiler alert, she woke up. We had some fucked up family dynamics. Edit, I've answered these in the comments, but for anyone who doesn't feel like scrolling. What happened when she woke up? My grandmom woke up mid-job, smacked my sister on the back of the head with her slipper, they sprung apart, and ran away without saying a word, and the next morning everyone just acted like nothing ever happened. As far as I know, my grandmother never said a word about it to anyone. Where was I? I was in bed, sneakily reading Eragon and none the wiser, until my sister told me the next morning. I think these two instances perfectly encapsulate who we both were as a person lol, and still are tbh. A guy I knew, while we were both early teens, had a huge crush on a girl, who was a close friend of his family. His parents were church friends with her parents. Then, her parents both died in a car accident, and his parents had agreed to adopt her if such an incident were ever to occur. His mom was kinda weird and made him start calling her sister, and none of his family knew he was head over heels in love with this girl, or if they suspected a crush they pretended not to. What they for sure didn't know, because his parents well disowned him, was that by high school, they were secretly banging almost every night. I lost touch with them during high school, and I want to know what ended up happening with them so badly it drives me crazy to think about. My mother passed away, so my brother and I moved in with my father, stepmother, and stepsister. My parents had a brutal divorce, so we were not very close to them. In fact, we didn't see my father for years. Fast forward, my brother, stepsister, stepbrother and I would play lights out as teenagers. Basically, turn the lights out and start beating the shit out of each other with pillows or anything we could find. I know it sounds like a sick game. Later, when we all played and wondered why I was not getting my hair pulled or punched, I turned on the lights and found my brother and stepsister making out. We stopped playing lights out, but my brother and sister were secretly seeing each until my stepmother found out. My uncle married his stepsister when they were teenagers. They had 4 kids together and divorced. Years later my dad married her. She was his stepsister and younger brother's ex-wife. My cousins became my step-siblings. Uncle lived around the corner. Her kids did not like being told what to do by their uncle. My dad always felt like she treated me and my sister poorly. My grandma threatened to disown my dad several times for marrying her. They were together for about a year before stepmom couldn't handle dad's drinking anymore, and he said he was sick of her kids disrespecting him and her not treating my sister and me good enough. We moved out, but they stayed married for over 10 years. Cousin/step siblings weren't as close with us after that, and my sister and I were kinda considered black sheep of the family. Too bad. I liked being around my cousins so much, and I thought my aunt/stepmom was cool. I was like 10 to 11 at the time though. I can't imagine what those two were thinking when they got together in the first place. Whole thing was confusing to say the least. Confusing is putting it lightly. I blacked out like 2 sentences in. Let's just slip right to relatives. Caught my cousins kissing. I quietly snuck out to let them do whatever horrors they intended. Never mentioned it not once. Well, apart from the odd slight remark every now and again. It was just a quick fling, I believe. Edit. They weren't siblings. They were also cousins to each other. I think they were around age 18 give or take a couple years. Didn't happen in the US as some people have tried to guess for various reasons and experiences. Thanks for all the interesting replies. Too many to reply to, but enjoyable to read. If you know people that have married or dated their cousin, no judgment from me, and I hope they are happy. The end. Not my story, but my partner's ex-friend fucked his aunt. They aren't related, biologically related, but the aunt knew the guy since he was baby. Plus, the uncle and him were close, and he worked for/with his uncle. Basically, the aunt was going through a breakup with his uncle. The ex-friend and aunt got drunk, fucked and kept as a thing. They only stopped when the uncle got his act together and wanted her back. Aunt told him everything, but pretty sure not the consistency of how many times. When the uncle found out, he called work saying he was going to kill his nephew, if not beat the living shit out of him. The coworkers told the ex-friend, and he skipped town. Obviously they no longer have a relationship with the aunt or uncle. Added note, completely forgot about this comment as I got preoccupied with other events. Was not expecting this. Time to look at my inbox. I got confirmation that he was 21 years old and he did have other sexual encounters, but he lost his virginity to his aunt. You have been visited by a rare athletic doggo. Hit like and subscribe in 5 seconds for good luck.